Hey everyone, welcome back to Animating.com. This is the last step in the tutorial. We're going to go ahead and render our character out and bring them into our compositing program of choice. We're going to be using After Effects. So before I started this recording, I wasn't happy with some of the timing here where he actually hits the block and then comes down. And then he jumps back up and comes down again. So all I did is I just select all my control objects, and I just grab some of these frames right here and just bring them closer. In fact, maybe I'll just bring this last one a step closer. Just want gravity to really take over when he's ready to fall. And then also I didn't like how he just went into a pose, so I added one more frame at the end and just kind of added a bit of a settle so he comes into the pose and kind of relaxes out of it. Alright, and I also slowed that down during his turn. His turn was a bit too slow for me as well, and again, we might even make that a little tighter. Bring in these frames once or twice there. Just because back here he really looks at the camera really fast. Just maybe takes them all 7 frames. Down here our turn is 10 frames, so we can still bring that down a little bit more if we want to. Just to keep him look energetic. Okay, so to render this character out, what we're going to want to do is get a camera set up. So we're going to go ahead and hide this image plane that we have. And we are actually going to be rendering out these blocks just for a reference for us in After Effects. So I'm just going to make them flat so we don't get any depth to them. So we're just right click, turn these into editable poly. On second polygon mode, hitting my grow selection and deleting every face. It will leave the one in the front. Okay, I'll do the same thing for the bottom ones. Grow, delete my selection, and one last one over here. Grow and delete. Okay, so for now we can control right click on all those and turn off renderable. Alright, they won't be rendering in our scene now. Let's just do a quick render, make sure everything else is turned off. Okay, we have one control object still set to being renderable, so we'll just right click on it. Object properties, turn off from renderable. Okay, now we need to frame this up. And I went to our render settings, which is right here, render setup. And we're just going to make sure that our width and our height are 480 by 333. And if we hit Shift F, it will frame up what we're actually going to see in our render view. So what we're going to do is, right now we know our character steps in at 11, so we're going to try and crop him out so that just the corner of him sneaks in here on the last frame there. Zoom out, try and get this logo into the shot as well. Just see how that looks. Okay, great. So what we'll do is we're going to lock or create a camera based on this viewport's position. So we'll go create camera from view. And we're just going to call this render me. Alright, so next what we need to do is get our render set up going. We need make a range because we're going to render all these frames from 0 to 199. And I know that because 199 is here. So 199. Scroll down. We don't have any really polished settings to set up. We're actually quite good with how our render is coming out right now. Hammer render output. And we'll just call this render character. So what I'm going to do is just go to rename this and copy that name. And that way we can actually just paste it down here into the file name. Go inside there and we'll just put an underscore at the end to get the numbers separate from our naming convention there. And we'll just set it to PNG. Hit save and just click OK. Alright, so we're all set. So I'll hit render. Alright, here we go. Rendering our character along here. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll be back once he's done rendering. Okay, so inside the folder you can see that all the stuff has been rendered. So our character there. right? And we have it after underscore. The 3D Studio Max is setting the increments of their numbers, so 0 to 1, 0, 199. Okay, so next we're going to need is the actual or these blocks here. And I know they don't move the entire 199 frames, but just keep things simple. We're just going to render the whole 199 frames of them. So we're going to go into our manage layers, and we're going to go into our character, and to set that not to renderable. Just make sure that's turned off. Okay, let's do a quick test render to see if that's working. Oh, we want to go into our render settings, turn off save file, and we want to turn off range for now, just while we check to see if everything's working. See our wireframe. We'll have to come back into these blocks and set them to renderable. Right? Test render that. Okay, perfect. Okay, so these will be used as our reference for the logo that we're going to create here. So I'm just going to go ahead and do my render settings. Go to range, keep it at 0 to 199. Our resolution is the same, 480 by 333. Go to save file, and we'll save this file out in a different folder. We're going to call this hammer logo reference render output. Okay. Put an underscore at the end, so we'll separate the numbers from the name convention. Enter, and we'll go ahead and render that. Oh, it appears at one point there our eyes were turned on, so we're just going to our eyes closed. We're just going to turn them off from being renderable. We can go ahead and render that one more time. Okay, great. So the last thing we need to get is his graphics. So we're going to right click these objects, turn them back off from being renderable, go back to our character, and we're just going to keep him renderable this time. But this time we're going to select the object, so we'll click the character layer. We'll go up here and we'll click on select highlighted objects with layers. That will select all the objects. So we'd have 4. You can see that all the objects in that layer have been selected. And we're going to right click, go to object properties, and we're just going to turn off or turn visible to camera off. So now when we hit render, we should just get a black screen. Change our render settings to single. Turn off save file. Go to a frame rate here, and everything should be turned off. And I know that we can't see anything because if I toggle between my display alpha channel, we don't see any objects inside here. If there was an object, you'd see a little bit of a white silhouette of that object. Okay, so why I did that is because I don't want the character to be renderable, but I want it to affect everything around it. So what we're going to make is a plane for the shadow. So we're going to go into create standard primitives plane. We're going to drag a plane out underneath this guy. We'll just call this floor shadow. And we're going to need to get a material for this, so we'll go into the material editor. We'll grab a blank material here, and we'll click on standard. And we're going to choose matte shadow. We'll just drag and drop the matte shadow material onto the floor. So what this will do is the whole floor will be rendered out transparent, except for any reflections or shadows that it catches. So we're going to go and create a light, standard lights, and we'll just use an omni light. We're going to put that on top of this fella. Right, and we're going to go on over, turn shadows on, and we're going to link that down to the master control object so it moves with them. Okay, great. So our light follows along. So we're going to go into our front view, or to our camera. Alright, let's just see if our shadow's coming through. So we can turn on our alpha channel, and we can see that we're actually getting the shadow here on the ground. And I'm not too worried about how blurry it is or the color of the shadow, because we're going to fix that up in our After Effects. Alright, so we're going to go to our render setup, turn this back to range, We'll save the file, and we're just going to come out, make a new folder, and we're going to call this Hammer Character Shadow Render Output. We're going to select that whole name, and we're going to paste that into the name, file name down here, followed by an underscore, and hit render. I'll just turn on my display alpha channel. I can see the shadow coming in now. Alright, so I'm going to pause the video and come back once this is finished.